Good morning, everybody. I hope you all had a fantastic week. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jackie, and I have the absolute pleasure of telling the kids' story every single week, and I look forward to it every single week. So the past couple of weeks, we have been talking about Samson. And so we had Samson part 1, and then Samson part 2, and last week I decided that part 2 would have just been ridiculously long. So this week we have Samson part 3. And this is where Samson's story gets really interesting. And it's actually one of my favorite stories in the Bible. And I know I say that a lot, but it's true. I have a lot of favorite stories from the Bible because they're all so good. All right. So our story starts with Samson, and he found this woman and wanted to take her home with him. So that's what he did. He took her home. And the Gazites, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the Gazites decided that they were going to try to take Samson over and overwhelm him and ambush him. So they waited outside of his house until dusk, dusk, one of the two. And they were like, we're going to wait till it gets dark so he doesn't see us, and then we'll take him over. We'll ambush him. He won't see it coming. Which would be true, except for the fact that Samson was ridiculously strong. He was insanely strong. So with that being said, they tried to take him over, but he picked him up, threw him over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes, and carried them up to the top of the mountain overlooking Hebron, right? So, and then after all of this happened, and a while later, he found a woman and he decided he was going to fall in love with her instantly. Her name was Delilah. And the Philistine leaders really, really wanted to take Samson captive. And they came to Delilah and they said, hey, if you find out what gives him his strength and tell us, we'll each give you 1,100 pieces of silver, which is a lot of silver. And so Delilah said to Samson, please tell me, where does your strength come from? How could someone tie you up and make you helpless? And Samson told her, if they tie me up with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, I will become weak like any other man. And so the Philistine leaders brought Delilah 7 fresh bowstrings that hadn't been dried, and she tied him up with them. And while the men in ambush were waiting in her room, she called out to Samson, the Philistines are here. But he snapped the bowstrings and continued on with his day. Then Delilah said to Samson again, you have mocked me and told me lies. Won't you please tell me how you can be tied up? And he told her, tie me up with new ropes that have never been used, and I will become weak like every other man. And so Delilah got new ropes that had never been used before and tied him up. And then the ambushers came back and Delilah calls out, Samson, the Philistines are here. And he breaks them like a thread. And so Delilah looked at Samson and said, you have mocked me all along and told me lies. Tell me how you can be tied up. She really wants to know. And so he tells her, he looks at her and says, I lost my place. If you weave 7 braids on my head with a web of a loom. And so she weaved his braids together, and the Philistines came, and she called out, Samson, the Philistines are here. And he woke up from his sleep, pulled out the pin with the loom, and defeated the Philistines again. And now Delilah looked at him and said, how can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? This is the 3rd time you have mocked me and not told me what makes your strength so great. And she kept nagging him and begging him to tell her what made him so strong. So he decided to tell her, he said, my hair has never been cut because I am a Nazarite to God from birth. If I am shaved, my strength will leave me and I will become weak like any other man. And so Delilah realized he told her the truth this time. And so the Philistine leaders came in and brought the money with him, And Samson fell asleep on Delilah's lap, and she shaved his head. And after she shaved his head, she cries out, "Samson, the Philistines are here." And when he woke up from his sleep, he said, "I will escape as I did before and shake myself free." But he didn't realize that his hair was cut and he didn't have his strength anymore. So because he didn't have his strength, the Philistines were able to take him over and take him prisoner. And they actually took out both of his eyes. He couldn't see anymore. He was blind. And so they decided to throw a celebration. They took Samson into prison, and he was grinding grain into powder. And his hair began to grow back. And the Philistine leaders, because they were throwing a party, they wanted entertainment. So they said to somebody, "Go get Samson from the prison so he can be our entertainment." And so when Samson came up, he had asked the person who was guiding him, his guide, to place him to where he could feel both of the pillars next to him. And so they did. And the temple was full of people, full of men and women and leaders of the Philistines, and about 3,000 people sitting on the roof to be able to see. And so Samson was supposed to entertain all of these people. And he called out to the Lord. He said, "Lord God, please remember me. Strengthen me, God, just once more. With one act of vengeance, let me pay back the Philistines for my 2 eyes." And Samson grabbed both of the pillars supporting the entire temple, leaned against them, and Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." He pushed them over with all of his strength, and the temple caved in on itself, killing Samson and everybody in it. Which sounds a little bit morbid, but that is okay. That happens sometimes in the Bible. So that is our story for today. A little bit crazy, but it is one of my favorites because it's so important and really reiterates the fact that God never leaves us, even if we can't feel him, even if things in our life change and we feel like he's not there anymore. All right, so that is all that I have for you guys today. I believe next is maybe Pastor Florin? No, offering. Chris.